eat my last piece of pumpkin pie.
Oh, was that yours? Sorry, brother.
Oh, man, all I wanted was a lousy piece of pumpkin pie.
Hello, Channel Master. Nice to see you again.
Oh man, come on, Fear. I don't have time for this. I just lost something very precious to me.
Who has time for such trifles? For today, I bring you a challenge, Channel Master.
Listen, Fear, I don't care. I'm not in the mood today.
Oh, come on, man. I worked so hard trying to find something to scare you, something to make you drown in your own fear. And what do you want to do? You don't even want to do it. Sheesh. Try to do something nice for a guy.
Fear! So you want me to review a movie that I don't want to watch, right?
Well, yeah, duh. Do I ever do anything else?
Okay, change of plans. If I review this movie for you, whatever it may be, I demand payment.
Okay. What do you want?
I want the last piece of pumpkin pie that Peter ate.
I said I was sorry.
Seriously? That's it. Okay, yeah, sure, whatever. You review this movie completely and honestly, and you will get your piece of pumpkin pie back.
Yes! Alright, so what is this scary movie of yours anyway? Hey dudes, I'm Channel Master Jake with another Spookyween Halloween special for you. So today we're going to be looking at the recently released Venom movie starring Tom Hardy and pretty much just Tom Hardy. Oh, and be forewarned that we will be going over some elements of the plot, so minor spoilers from here on out. Now it's time for a quick plot synopsis, even though it's nothing we haven't already seen before. Especially if you've already seen the absolute best Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man 3. I'm kidding. It's actually The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So Eddie Brock is an investigative journalist for, I don't know, some random news company. They don't really say. He gets a scoop that the ironically named Life Corp isn't actually helping folks, but is instead snatching homeless people off the streets for illegal experimentation. As he tries to break in and collect the evidence he needs, he ends up unleashing one of their test subjects, a black goo that turns out to be an alien symbiote. It bonds with Eddie, and thus begins the buddy comedy movie that is Eddie and Venom. First, let's go over the stuff that I liked about Venom. Now, for starters, the movie is funny. Like, really funny. I joked earlier about it having a buddy cop feel to it, but that's actually not too far off. Brock and Venom just have a hilarious dynamic with each other. One of the straight men who has to deal with everything, and the quirky foreigner who doesn't understand our ways. Oh yeah, and he just so happens to like eating brains too. See, it's funny because he shouldn't be eating people's heads. What a scoundrel. So since the entire movie mostly focuses on these two, I feel that their relationship had to be an interesting one, and I feel that the movie delivered on that front. Another great part about the movie was the action. When Brock finally gets the symbiote, the movie hits the gas pedal and it doesn't let up until the very end. There's some really cool stuff to see too. My personal favorite was this car chase that happens about midway through the movie. They give you just about everything you can think of. Skidding with the symbiote, launching Eddie over bars with a symbiote, Eddie not being squished between two cars with a symbiote. It adds a bunch of variety that makes the scene visually interesting. The CG was also really well done. The symbiotes looked more fluid and, I guess, less sticky than the Raimi version. I honestly prefer the Raimi symbiote appearance, but the way Venom looks in this is vastly superior to Spider-Man 3. I mean, he's gross, he's slick, and most importantly, he's giant. I mean, he is huge.
Phrasing. Shut up!
He towers over his opponents, which is something that I liked about the comic book version. Brock was always a buff guy, and so when he got the symbiote, he got even taller and larger than his enemies. It made him even more intimidating, and I'm honestly glad they kept that in. Lastly, Hardy did a good job as Brock. I mean, he's definitely not the same Brock as the one we know from the comics, but since they're trying to distance themselves from that version, I honestly didn't mind him. As opposed to his usual jock behavior and childish tantrums, here he's a down-on-his-luck loser who's stubborn and has a strong moral compass. Definitely a different character than the classic Eddie Brock, but not one that I minded, especially because he worked off of Venom better this way. And now it's time for the things that I didn't like about the movie. So to begin, let's go over what I think is the movie's biggest problem, the villain. Oh, but before I continue, don't forget about that spoiler warning, okay? So about that villain, it's just so obvious that he's the bad guy that it's not even funny. I mean, watch one trailer, look at one photo of the cast, and you know who the baddie is. I mean, look, even if you've never seen the trailer, heck, especially if you've never seen the trailer, try and guess. Oh man, who could the villain possibly be? Is it her? Is it him? Of course it's obviously him. I mean, come on, it's so obvious, it's not even funny. And you might be thinking, oh, well, just because he's an obvious villain doesn't mean he can't be good, right? Right? Well, sir, madame, people, you'd be wrong. They make this guy a power-hungry jerk with a god complex, which they show in the most unsettled scene ever put to film, and it looks like they could be setting up an interesting villain, but nope. He just sort of keeps experimenting on people until he gets his own symbiote, because of course he gets his own symbiote. How else are they going to have a giant Venom fight scene at the end? And that fight scene was also pretty bad. It was two giant hulking monsters, both dark-colored, fighting in a jumbled CG mess. And you know what made it completely worse? This shadowy battle took place completely
at night.
I could barely follow what was happening. It's like most Transformers fight scenes where there's so much darn CG that you can barely tell what's actually happening. Wait, did Venom hit the bad guy or did the bad guy hit Venom? Now who's falling off the bridge? What is happening right now? It also doesn't help that both symbiotes have exactly the same voice too. Not a great move there, Sony. Now, like I said, the movie is oddly funny, which I liked, but it's also kind of weird because the trailers made it look more serious than that.
Like a bird in the wind.
Well, mostly serious anyway. It honestly feels like the original movie was going to be more of a dark horror film, but an executive somewhere said, no way, that's too dark. So they shot some more scenes and they rewrote it to have a lighter tone. This results in the movie having a somewhat disjointed feel, as it tries to jump too much between these different atmospheres and honestly fails most of the time. Although the ending did a pretty good job of balancing the two. And lastly, and this is just a nitpick mind you, but I hate the reason why he's called Venom in this movie. Oh, and don't forget that spoiler warning is still in effect. So in the other versions, it's because both Brock and the symbiote want to be the end of Spider-Man, right?
Now, we're one. Now, you're gonna pay. From now on, we're poison to you, Spider-Man. That's why we call ourselves Venom.
So, what's the reason why they call themselves Venom in this movie? No reason. It's just the symbiote's God-given name. I mean, what the heck? He was just spawned one day and his parent symbiote was all like, yeah, you know what, son? You look like a Venom to me. And then he just slithers away, that's it.
No, don't like that.
It takes away one of the coolest parts of Venom's character and just makes it a random factoid you learn. Yeah, another great move there, Sony. So all in all, I did have a good time with Venom. It might not have been as good a movie as it could have been, but compared to what I thought we were gonna get, it's not that bad. It's definitely weighed down by a terrible villain and by tone issues, but Tom Hardy is great, the action is great, and the relationship between Venom and Brock is so much fun to watch. All in all, I'd have to give the movie 3 chest spiders out of 5. Not perfect, but still a fun time. But what do you guys think? Did you like Venom? How does this version of the character stack up against the other versions? Leave me a comment down below telling me what you think. And consider subscribing too while you're at it. There are more videos coming, I promise. Like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you dudes in the next one. Make sure to hug someone you love today. Bye. Well, that's that. Now it's time for pie.
Man, why do they always have to make these loops so tiny?
Fear! I've come to claim my prize.
Seriously? You finished your review already? And you didn't die from how incredibly scary the movie was?
It wasn't actually a scary movie, Fear. I mean, it was bad in some areas, but it definitely wasn't scary.
And you didn't die from how terrible the movie was either?
Just where do you get your sources, man?
Where else? Rotten Tomatoes. I figured you'd die one way or the other.
Well, sorry to disappoint you, but the movie wasn't actually scary enough to, scare me.
Ah, damn it. Well, I guess a promise is a promise. Here. But mark my words, Channel Master. I'll be back next year, and I will scare your pants off. Mark my...
You can go now. Door's that way.
Mark my words.